This conference will now be recorded.
Meeting June 17th, 2025. Roll call, please.
Member Perala,
Present.
Member Siggety,
Present.
Vice Chair Khalil.
Here.
And alternate member Gutherson. Here. And Chair Berger.
Here. Pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Members, any additions, deletions, modifications, and approval of the agenda?
Motion to approve.
Second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Wonderful. Public comment. Seeing no public comment, we'll close public comment. Approval of minutes to the May 20 meeting.
So moved. Okay, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Wonderful. Okay, let's start with the quasi judicial hearing for 13 Inlet K Drive. At this time, any ex parte communication shall either be disclosed by identifying the subject of the communication and the identity of the person, group, or entity with whom the communication took place, or any correspondence be provided to the town clerk and made part of the public record. In addition, each member of the commission may identify the existence of any investigations or site visits he or she has conducted, or any expert opinions received, and disclose any conflict of interest on this matter. Members, any on this application?
None.
So Lynette, this is we're bringing to the open to the public if we've had any communications with anyone associated with the application, right? And so that it's public knowledge at this point. Wonderful. Okay, so let's Kelly, can you swear in those who wish to give testimony, please?
Will anyone wishing to speak on this item, please stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? When you are called forward, please state your name and address clearly for the record and whether or not you've been sworn in, and please speak directly into the microphone.
Thank you. Corey, good morning.
Good morning, Chair, board members. Corey O'Gorman, Town Planner. This is development plan review for 13 Inlet K. The proposal is for a new two-story home with 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, 2 half baths, 2-car garage, pool, spa, and pool deck. The plan was reviewed by town staff. There are staff review reports attached to the staff report. There, for my review, there were 3 conditions of approval that needed to be addressed prior to your review. The plans that are included in your packet do address those 3 conditions. The only remaining condition is regarding a survey that would need to be updated to title to be sure that there's no easements or encumbrances of record that would affect the development, and that would be prior to building permitting. The town engineer also has a report attached to the staff report with conditions of approval to be addressed at the time of permitting. The project does comply with the town codes in terms of the zoning and land development regulations, and a recommendation is for approval, subject to your review in accordance with the requirements for development plan review that are outlined in the staff report. I'd be happy to answer any questions and, of course, look forward to the applicant's presentation.
Wonderful, thank you. Thank you for the conditions of approval. So they addressed all the
Yes, sir, they did.
Okay, so it said condition addressed in revised plans. Okay, so that's what we have in front of us. Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Tara, any, our town engineer, any comments from you?
Tara Bamber, town engineer. No, they've met all of the preliminary drainage and whatnot approval that they need
Okay,
to move forward.
okay. All meets our criteria. You're wonderful. Okay, thank you. Great. Zoning official Manny, any Comment from you?
Board members, at this time, no, everything still remains the same. My calculations haven't changed. As theirs have already been met, as Corey mentioned, that they are in compliance with all our town zoning ordinances.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Applicant, please go ahead and make your presentation. Good morning.
Morning. Good morning, my name is Richard Bremer. I'm with RWD Linares Architecture, located at 3000 North Military Trail, Suite 209, Boca Raton, and I have been sworn in. Today, I'd like to review new two-story residence located at 13 Inlet Drive. If we can turn to the existing survey, I think it's the last page in your packet. The new home is replacing an existing one-story home built in 1979 of approximately 3,300 square feet under roof. The existing home finished floor elevation sits at 7.55 NAVD. If we want to scroll or go to pages A3 and A4, which are the new first floor and second floor floor plans, the new home will be a two-story transitional Bermuda style home with a square footage of 3435 AC and 4797 square feet under roof. It will have 4 bedrooms, 3 full baths, powder room, cabana, 2-car garage, an open plan concept with club room, pool, and pool deck, and nicely appointed hardscape and landscape. If we can go to sheet A 1.0, which is the site plan. The proposed home sits on a 100 wide by 110 deep lot, with the rear having a northern exposure to the canal views, and to the front, obviously, to Inlet Cave Drive. The house sits within the required setbacks of 25 feet to the front, 25 feet to the rear, 15 to the sides. The new finished floor elevation will be at 10 feet NAVD, which meets the FEMA flood zone height requirement. The garage will be at 5.75. The existing edge of pavement at the street is approximately 2.8 feet NAVD, and will have a new driveway slope of 6.6%. At the rear, the covered lanai will be at 9.5 NAVD, which steps down to the pool deck area, which is at 8.5 feet. And then you'll have additional steps from the pool deck down to the side yard, which is at 7.5. And then from the pool deck, which is at 8.5, down to the new dock area, which would be at 6 feet NAVD. The retaining walls in the back will be at the same height as the pool deck, which is at 8.5 feet NAVD. So if you guys can turn to the renderings on sheet A 0.1 and A 0.4. Some of the renderings show no landscaping on the side, so you can see the architectural features on the side. The transitional Bermuda style elevation has a clean but elegant feel with white exterior paint color. The shutters and trim will be an off-white cream color. The roof will be a flat roof tile, earth tone blend. There will be bronze color windows and doors. The height and scale of the entry and overall massing is sensitive to the FEMA height requirement, trying to create a more human scale approach and feel from the street to be compatible to the surrounding neighbors. There will also be a straight drive. From the drive, there will be a walk with steps that lead to the front entry. The garage to the right and the guest room to the left will be a one-story element, symmetrical with a 2-story element, which is to be centered. There will be landscaping on both sides of the entry, with cascading planters stepping down to the front yard. The rear of the house will have a open field with covered lanai and covered balcony areas facing the pool and canal. There'll be decorative aluminum rails at the balconies. There will be a simple pool and spa design, plus a fire pit sitting area. To the east and to the west, there will be a privacy retaining walls and fence. Also, having a straight drive to the front leaves room for the septic system to be located at the front west portion of the property, avoiding the front 5-foot FPL easement. Overall, the new proposed home hardscape and nicely appointed landscaping will enhance and create an elegant look and feel along Inlet Cave Drive streetscape. Now, please allow me to answer any architectural questions you may have. Louis from Majestic View is here to answer any questions you may have on the hardscape and landscape.
Well, let's, thank you
Sure.
for your presentation. Appreciate that. First, we're going to open up to public comment on the application, and then we'll have board comment. Do we have any public comment? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Okay. Board?
Good looking house.
Yeah.
Shockingly, I have nothing to say.
Whoa. So first. Neil, do you have anything?
It's good looking.
Good job.
Linda,
I
do you have any
like the
questions?
additional schedule where it shows the window coverage on the, I don't remember seeing that on the other plans.
No.
It's a nice addition to see the penetrations.
I have a couple comments, but first question is, and I don't know how this applies to here, but is the new seawall criteria, are they in effect for this application? Okay, so you're aware of this. So I assume you're replacing the seawall?
Correct.
Okay, to whatever our new, we went through and the town commission has approved now. Is that correct? Okay. Second thing is, do you feel like in a 4-bedroom house like this, do you have enough parking for cars?
Yes, we have
I mean, if you had,
a car garage
yeah.
and you have the 2 spaces in the front there. So you have a total of 4 cars.
Right, but if you have, if a couple,
Well, you got to remember that we have the septic system to deal with in regards, and then we have required setbacks for that septic system. So we're kind of, pigeonholed to where we can create space for that and the driveway location.
okay, well, I'm sensitive to that because my neighbors have overparked they
Oh, I
don't use
can
their
understand.
garage and they keep 5 cars out in the front all the time and they're always
Yeah,
on
I
the
mean-
street and there's always problems. So no, this is a big house, right? This is a good size, I shouldn't say big, this is a good sized house.
Well, yeah, it meets the limits of what we're allowed.
Right, yeah, it does. And so just making sure there's the parking here, because I don't think we really encourage off-site parking, street parking here, right? Sometimes people use the garage as a storage area and put a car in and some storage in and stuff
Yeah,
like that. So it's just one of those things that we talk about, but it doesn't seem like we do much about it.
Yeah, the garage is at a height where you'll be able to have a lift. If you have any, if you collect cars or you have any extra cars, you can put, the cars on the lift and stick them in the garage.
Okay.
I will comment on positively.
Sure.
Can you use your microphone, please?
Oh, sure, sorry. I will comment positively on the massing of the home.
Yes.
And if I go back, I found some old articles in 2000 when we first started in year 2000. My God. Then when we first started about massing, and you're actually taking a picture out of that playbook. Yeah. And you did a really good job of that. And it's, you see the balance so I have nothing but compliments to you.
Thank you.
And that's not to imply that this should be the cookie cutter for everybody else, because I like ingenuity, I like creativity, but you did a great job, so thank you. And I'll make a motion to accept the application as presented, subject to the conditions of the staff.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Okay.
Appreciate your time.
Yeah. Okay, next on the agenda, discussion on how the commission wishes to approach the technical aspects of the seawall ordinance. I assume we're going to start with, Christie, your discussion point here for us.
Yes, sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as you may recall, we worked on the seawall ordinance for quite some time, forwarded it to the town commission with the recommendation of approval and recognizing that there's probably some technical issues that may need to be addressed in the near future. But this was the first step towards having some regulations and guidelines in the code in terms of the height of the seawall and moving that forward. So in the discussion with the town commission, two questions really were posed to bring back to planning and zoning to start looking at in terms of some of the technical requirements we did not get to. And the first one is obviously the return that is required for the new substantially repaired or substantially damaged seawall. When they build the return, what's the dimensions of the return? So that was the first question. The second question was to define unreasonable interference with the navigable waterway in terms of, are we going to set limits on how far someone could encroach into the waterway if, for example, their property line extends out further than their existing seawall? So those were the two questions. I believe Ingenuity sent their thoughts on the extension out into the navigable waterway. So it's really to have that, start having that conversation. Obviously, this is starting to get into the technical requirements and whether or not the planning and zoning board sees a need to obtain a consultant who knows these technical things and can get into it with the seawall.
Okay.
Weren't we gonna have a survey of all of the canals in Ocean Ridge for us to see some of the existing? Didn't we talk about that?
We
We
did.
did. The price to do it could be.
Yeah, we did talk about building an inventory.
To see where, how prevalent an issue this really is.
Well, I think it was really more, yes, but painted towards dealing with the Army Corps and DEP. That's what, similar to what has been done in Boca. I think Boca did it.
I think Boca did it.
And I think some other communities have done that. So that was the intent behind it. I don't know if it really was dealing with the return aspect.
No, not the,
But
next
certainly
issue,
with
though.
the unreasonable interfere with navigation, yeah. And which, I think we ought to do this one at a time. Let's talk about the return. And then,
Yes.
because I think the other one's gonna be a little bit more extensive.
Correct.
Because there's more issues with that.
Mr. Chairman, on the return front, again, I brought this up last time, that actually in the initial part of the discussion, the returns are typically constructed in a completely different way than the seawall. So requiring them to be of the same material is probably doesn't make any sense. Usually they drive sheet piles into the ground and then, put a cap on it. I think what's more important is to make sure that return, that there's compliance with the site drainage situation. That would be much more important than the construction type, as long as it's an engineering improved one. So my thoughts on this is that we strike out the built with the same material, because in 90% of the cases it isn't. But then we add the compliant, which is probably implicit or understood, but the site drainage situation, because you're now blocking the entire, there's a U-shaped form.
Can we just take a step back to make sure everyone understands what a return is? Tara, would you just talk to us about that? Just understand, the technical aspect of what we're talking about here. Okay? We've got the wet face, we understand that, the wet face being the vertical portion of the seawall, right?
Yeah, so we were hoping that the building official was gonna be here, because this is actually more of a structural issue.
Uh-huh.
I can talk about elevations, and part of this, I think, is what, is referring to. So our minimum now is 5 feet for the seawall elevation. So if you have another seawall next to you that's at like 3, you need to tie those in together so that drainage or impacts don't happen to the other property. So that's the elevation point of it.
Yeah.
Structurally, I do not have.
Okay,
with that.
okay.
But, that's from a
But
drainage perspective.
two walls were both at 5 feet, they don't need a return between them.
Exactly.
It's only when there's
Yeah.
height or.
Correct, which is what's gonna happen as you,
Right.
like,
So
there's an
most of
arms
these-
race.
Yeah, and most of these have retaining walls, so not every property, but a lot of properties have their retaining wall because of the difference in elevation. So the seawall would basically come over and connect to that retaining wall, and that is what I'm assuming this return is
Right.
referring to.
Christie, is that
That's correct.
with your understanding as well? Thank you. Just so we understand that, right?
So and I agree with what Mr. Pointed out, but I think, I think this is more technical than we can stand here and talk about, right? And I think,
Mhm.
so I do think we should get an engineering viewpoint and along with Mike or whoever, structurally is dealing with that aspect, but, and then come back at one of the future meetings. and
Can we also see what, if Boca's, or can we see what adjoining
Yeah,
towns have
I mean-
done on the seawall with the return and see what that language is? And maybe it has already been lawyered.
Just to simplify it, we don't have specific requirement for the seawall itself, right? We could build it, so the idea of having specific requirement for the return doesn't, right? Because the seawall can be constructed in, steel panels that are driven into the concrete. They can construct it with, like, there's 6 or 7 different
Piles,
technologies.
they do, yes, exactly.
So
right.
we're not dictating that. The idea that we're gonna dictate the return, I think it should just be an engineered approved, the same way the seawall itself, we're accepting a formal engineer's design, same way for the return. From the town's perspective, I think the drainage situation is important because that's gonna change it's gonna change the nomenclature of how the two properties.
Right.
And more as people increase the height, that's gonna come to play. Like in our case, we're going through the same process. We try to get both of our neighbors to do it at the same time to avoid, but it's almost impossible to get everybody synchronized on the same time.
That is the problem.
Yeah. So returns are gonna be there. And I think drainage is a problem. And then, anyway, make my point.
Well, is drainage a problem? Because you're supposed to still, on a new build, you're supposed to hold all the water, drain it on your own site.
Right.
You're supposed to design it that way, right?
Right.
So just the fact of, one seawall being at 3 feet, the other one being at 5 feet, that shouldn't change the drainage aspect of it, should it? If there's a retaining wall between the two properties?
If there's a retaining wall.
Yes.
If there's not a retaining wall, then it's a separate issue, but.
Well, there has to be some type of wall because the
Yeah,
elevations are different,
So I
right?
do want to say that in the code, it does say that any runoff cannot impact the waterways. So you can't impact adjacent property, but waterways are considered adjacent property. So we already kind of
Oh, so it's already
established
covered.
that in terms of drainage, but like the drainage plan doesn't really even address the seawall connecting to the other seawall, so we might just have to add that language, which, like, I agree that you don't want to put too much technical information in your code. It is approved by the town building official. Like, a lot of things, we don't put all that technical stuff in the code because there are so many different ways to do something.
All right, so I'll go back to what I said. I think it's best to come back
Yes.
and with a view after you had a chance to review it and come back with a recommendation, from staff. And then look at neighboring municipalities, to see what they've written, if any. And then just come back with us. That's what I think.
Yes, makes sense. That's for item 1, right?
Item 1.
Yes.
Item 2 is a little bit more complicated. because you have an interaction of a lot of things going on there.
Yes.
You have a state definition of navigable waters, you have federal definitions of navigable waters. And we have our own personal beliefs in what navigable waters should be. And there's a ton of litigation and ton of viewpoints on this. So whatever we say has to be in conjunction with those other elements. So it is gonna take a level for the town attorney possibly to whatever we do, to, yeah, it's you. To do it in light of whatever other regulations they are. But, I think Tara, you came up with this, right, Tara? Yeah. And she defined it, it is so difficult, as,
So defining that phrase.
Yeah. I mean, I could add some language, hinders, obstructs the public right to use the waterway for navigation or other related activities, or activities that disrupt the reasonable flow of traffic or ability to use the waterway safely, compared to something, a concept called navigability in fact, which is a legal concept, but,
But if you also have a 100-foot property frontage on a canal, 100 feet wide, if there was a 20-foot, if they put piles all the way across 20 feet out, it would make that canal on both sides. You couldn't turn a boat
Right.
around in it. So is there a maximum width that's allowed as well for that 20-foot
Well,
interference in the 100-foot wide navigable
This is
body of water?
this is unrealistic, guys,
Yeah.
by the way, because remember, you have a dock that's 5 feet, and then you only have 15 feet from the edge of the dock to where your outside pilings would be. That's not realistic. I mean, I'm a boater. I have a boat. I've had a boat at my house now for 25 years. I don't know, my canal probably is on the narrower side, but that's wholly unrealistic. Some boats, the beam of boats are, my current boat may be 11-foot beam. I've had boats in there have a 14-foot beam, right? So you've got to understand, and by the way, right now, when guys down at the end of the canal, guys got a 60 or 50, big, huge center console, he has to back out. And that's realistic. That's just the way it is. I mean, there's not enough space to do that. He can't turn the boat around inside the canal, right? And I have a 41-foot boat and I can barely turn around in the inside of the canal. But to have it so that you limit the size of the boat from a common sense standpoint, you can't have something crazy in these canals. I get it. But you have to have something that, because those dolphin pilings, the outside pilings, there's still space between there and the boat and the dock and the boat. There's a foot and a half, maybe 5 feet there. That's 10 feet. Then all of a sudden you only have a 10-foot beam to your boat. It's not, this is not realistic, I don't think, the 20% formula here, at least in my canal. Now, Ken, your canal, you got a lot of space. In
we have a
your
little bit wider.
canal. Yeah, you've got more space in your canal. I don't know about you guys' canals,
But
right?
we have some, shallowness that.
300
that-
feet.
Yes.
There's a limit
Limits
that
it.
goes across. So there's
a
other
big
issues that come into play,
Oh.
and that's why this has to be fairly broad
Yes.
definition that, it's a battle and it's tough, but, unfortunately, you want to say to use some common sense, but we can't because not everybody uses common sense.
I believe that the Boca and Delray, their regulation is 25% of the canal width maxed out at 20 feet.
Including the dock.
From the wet face, how much you can, you're gonna leave 50% of the canal available for navigation. So in smaller canals, it's less than 20 feet. But that's gonna, dictate how big of a boat you're gonna get. But that's anything.
What have we done in the
Yeah,
past?
what is the Boca?
What are we doing now, by the way, just curious?
What are we doing now? So,
An application comes in, he looks at his, he's putting a 5-foot dock in, how far out can he put his dolphin pilings?
so what, the code isn't,
It's
Manny?
20 feet.
Yeah.
The pilings are 20 feet max.
From the wet face or from the
I
dock?
think it's from the
Yes.
wet face.
It is from the wet base
Okay,
Where did the 20 feet come from?
to the ordinance.
I know.
I have no idea.
So by applying a percentage, that kind of varies what that would be, right?
Well, for small,
So
for smaller, right,
smaller
in Boca
canals.
it's 20 max, but in smaller canals, where
20
it's,
feet or 20%?
no, 20 feet max.
Okay.
But if the canal is smaller than 100 feet, I think then the reverse the percentage. That's
Okay.
my understanding.
So I didn't do a survey, but I did go, into like my GeoNav. And most of our canals are 100 feet. So I'm not really sure where it's less. But
Okay.
I found mostly everything to be about 100 feet wide. That property line to property line. And I said 20%. The 25% isn't that unrealistic either.
No.
When I was looking for how far a boat should be from a seawall, that was like 10 to 20 feet, just the boat from the seawall. And those were on like those 40-foot narrow right-of-ways, property line to property line. So we have 100 feet. I am not a boater, so I don't know, don't know that type of stuff. But that is what I found. The 20% seemed like a average of what was being out there. 25 seems a little bit more reasonable.
The trouble is if you have the batter piles off your wet face, that's out
Yeah.
4 feet,
Depends.
about.
Well, off your wet face, you're supposed to have your dock is no more than 5 feet off the wet face,
Right,
right?
so let's call it 5. So you get.
Let's start with
15.
5, and then from there, they go out another 15 feet off of that, right?
Which
Make the
would
20 feet
accommodate
total.
boats probably up to about 50 foot.
Not
The
on the
beach.
lift,
Not on the, no,
not
not
on
on
the
the
lift.
lift, no.
So, Mr. Chair.
But you can put a 50 foot on.
Under the new ordinance, your dock can be from the seawall cap.
Yes,
Your
not,
seawall cap can be 2 feet out from technically the wet face of your dock,
yes.
of your seawall. So you could build your dock right up your seawall cap, so that's gonna already give you out 7 feet from the wet face of your seawall. So then, under the dock provisions in the code, the pilings, it looks like, can be, they're not to project more than 20 feet into any waterway or extend closer than 10 feet to the lot line of any other property, or closer than 10 feet to the lot line extended beyond said property line on a line perpendicular to the seawall or bulkhead, and they shall not interfere with navigation on waters within the town. That's
Sounds
what our
reasonable.
code currently says.
What have been the problems that associate with what we currently have? Are there any?
I think
Is it a solution looking for a
the
problem?
only problem I see is the fact that some of these are already out. So if you're gonna build another seawall and a dock from the current wet face, okay, but if you need to build another seawall and we're allowing up to like 18 inches of where your seawall
There
is
you go.
now, that's problems that I foresee. Cause I saw like my little, my GeoNav measuring tool, some of these boats are already out to that 20 feet. So if they need to come and do a new seawall, then we start getting further out and out.
Just the size of the boats themselves push them out that far. Yeah.
Some of these large boats. The biggest I saw was, the Ocean Club across.
Yeah.
They had some very large boats that way, and their dock is already, I think it was a dock, but it seemed like it was wider than most of the other ones on the residential properties.
Well, they don't have that big one, then they don't have the big center consoles, but they're real big boats, right?
In the season, there's a couple of nice sized ones, but nothing crazy.
Nothing real big. Right?
Yeah, that's just, those are the
'Cause they can't get
larger
down
ones
the
that I
canal.
saw.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So the commissioners, they're familiar with what you just gave us, which was the existing. And they're looking for us to look at the existing. And is it really The interference in the canal, is that the real issue they're wanting us, your second item they really want us to address?
Right, the vice mayor, his question was, what does this really mean, unreasonably interfere?
Yes.
And I said, well, that's kind of starting to get into the technical realm of what that really means. And obviously it varies.
And that's where disrupts or limits safe and practical boat movements, what you came up with, right, impairs access, poses hazards, right?
Yeah, it's such a broad.
Well, I would say not only practicable boat movement, but other related activities. I would broaden it so that it's beyond just boat activities.
And what you're seeing too, by the way, too, and you've probably seen some applications, is people are extending kind of their lawn, their backyard, using the boat, the dock area, that extra 5 feet, and actually making it kind of part of their backyard, right? My neighbor,
Concrete with.
two houses down, they don't have a dock. They extended their backyard out 5 feet and then put a boat lift in.
They extended their backyard 5 feet.
They took the 5 feet that you can put and you've seen this, I'm sure, this can't be the only one.
They do a concrete dock.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
then they
just
put
a
the
dock,
hard,
and then
they
they
do a
put like
hardscape on top of the
hardscape.
concrete
Okay.
dock.
I thought
The reason-
there was somebody that kind of extended something that they shouldn't
I
have.
haven't seen grass, only concrete.
Okay.
Well, I've seen it where they put fake grass there.
Yeah.
Really?
That's my neighbor's got it, right? His whole backyard's fake grass, which I assume you're allowed to put fake grass in, right? Are we allowed fake
Not
grass?
today, not today.
Not today, that's on the side yard only.
Yes.
Not today. That's a topic for a different day. Please. So if we want to further define, I mean, what Tara's come up with is okay. Just so we can further define that if that's what we need to do.
Chrissy, can you send us over what the existing code is, by the way?
Absolutely.
Please, just so we've got that, or someone can you send it to us, so we've got that?
It's 6477 in your,
No, that's just the proposed.
oh, you want the existing seawall, it was just approved?
Yeah, what you just
It's in
talked,
your
what you
packet.
just gave
Oh.
us, your outline, what you just gave us.
Oh, so that's 6477, location of docks, floating docks, et cetera.
Yes, please.
That's in the, you have to go to community code.
You know, and I can see how some of these floating docks could potentially, you know, go out and they put their boats perpendicular instead of parallel.
Well, floating docks I'm looking at a floating docks in another situation, because a floating dock can't just be 5 feet wide. It's got to be wider than that. Otherwise, it's like a canoe. As you get 70 feet long and 5 feet wide, it doesn't have stability. It's not stable.
Right.
So you have to make it 8 feet wide, at 70 feet long to make it stable. Right. So you have to come and I guess get a variance for that. Right. As long as you still, then you don't really, theoretically, you don't need dolphin
Lift.
pilings then. Then you don't need dolphin pilings theoretically, right, at that point.
The code is up on the screen.
Okay.
So on these floating docks, we've taken the position that if it's moored, meaning it's not permanently connected to your seawall, there's a different standard, and you don't need a building permit. There's a location requirement, obviously, but you don't need a building permit, but if you attach it to your seawall to make it more stable, then you have to come in for a building permit.
But if you put pilings in, that it's anchored as a result of the pilings you put in, then you don't need it.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. There's still, obviously you can't build in someone's setback, but
Yeah.
those types of issues, but.
Yes.
I'm actually not sure if it's possible to anchor a floating dock to a seawall. You have to.
You have to
Yeah.
anchor
Freestanding,
Yeah.
the
it rise up
pilings.
and down.
Yeah,
The
you
pilings,
have to.
it's anchor the
Yeah.
pilings.
We have
And there's certain areas where, again, the amount of water ahead of you, like where we are, 300, 400, 500 feet, it's not a problem. But on the canals, that's where the situation is. And I think again, leaving 50% of the canal open for navigation is reasonable, which is what the current code more or less says.
Well, I might recommend that we study this further, ask for the staff review of item number 1 a little bit, and let us think about this for the,
But I also think though that although we are talking about the projection into the canal, I think we have to talk about the percentage of your frontage that you can bring to that full depth.
yes.
Because if everybody did, you would end up with not navigable, you couldn't turn any boat around in those narrower canals.
Yes, but 100 feet,
So you ought to be able to have half of your, you can only infringe 20 feet out on half of your frontage.
Some of the lots have, towards the end, have very low frontage.
And or they have the dolphin piles all the way across so they can dock their boat in 3 different places. It just makes it.
yes.
We don't have any restriction on how wide the beam of a boat can be in the waterway.
No,
Yeah.
No short, no, you shouldn't.
Well, we may not need it, but I can tell you that I've been involved in situations where the person at the end of the canal,
Yes.
not the
Oh,
inside
yes.
of the canal,
Yes.
on the intercoastal has a beam wide enough so that the big boat on the end of the canal couldn't get through.
No,
And
that
that caused some litigation, which I was involved with, or some turmoil that I was involved with. But, so, that adds to this just a little bit.
How do the property lines go at the end of the canal? Do they come out as an angle or do they come?
What do you mean the property line?
You have the guy at the end, you have the guy here. They both have the water frontage. Does that come out at a 45-degree angle? How does that, I don't know.
Some of them, yeah, it depends on where you're at.
Or is that in your deed?
No,
I'm not on the
you
end
have
of the canal.
nothing in the, well, depending on the
Because it's
lot,
navigable
but
water,
The
so.
typical platted lot here, don't hold me to this, typically ends right around the seawall. Typical platted lot in Ocean Ridge ends at the seawall. So there's no right necessarily going into the water.
So the rights to use the water would come out on an angle from the corner.
The rights to,
Or
if you're
whatever.
at the end, you
If
mean?
you're at the end.
Oh, I see.
I
So,
don't know how that works.
now you get into a riparian right.
Right.
As to what angle the riparian right takes hold. It's usually from the property. It's usually directly straight from the property, not at a 45-degree angle. It's usually straight out.
So one guy would have the riparian right and the other guy would have 0. One property owner.
No,
If you're on the corner.
no, not necessarily.
I don't know how
If
that
you're on the
works.
corner, then your riparian right is like this. So it goes around the dock if you're on the corner.
Not clear.
Carl, you've seen applications with,
For example,
in the corners,
I
right?
think 113
I'm dealing with this
Island Drive South,
Yes,
4
I'm
miles
very-
right now.
they're like at that little turn.
yes.
So I don't remember.
113 that's never been built on?
Because if the guy on the
I know
side
that.
put a 25-foot dock out, then the guy at the end couldn't even get to his property.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. So, well, what would I'm trying to think of an example in town where this could be created.
The end of every canal.
Kelly, can you pull up?
I've just not have seen a survey because my lot is not on the end. I'm in the middle.
113 is a good example because that's a small lot. The lot next to it is,
113
on the north side is a double lot,
Harbor
right?
Drive South is the
And-
same.
Yes.
Harbor Drive, that area, they have tight lots
Yeah.
Yes.
or tight canals.
I think it's 10 or 11.
So a
Whatever
beam
one
theoretically
they-
could be sticking out that would prevent somebody else from going through there, but that's not a structure, right? It's a boat.
It's a
We don't
boat.
have any prohibition against the size of the boat.
But if you put dolphin piles out there,
That's different. That's different, because now you have a structure that's inhibiting
No, you're not gonna
the
go back to
navigability of the waterway potentially.
No, yeah. And then just put the aerial on.
Area.
And little.
Sorry, I don't use these very often.
You know, I think Boca might have a restriction on the size of the boat as it impacts the canal.
There we go. Look at that. Like, how do the property rights go there?
Yeah, so that's a difficult, yeah.
Yes.
So it's not straight out. If you look at the,
But if
if
both,
you look at the inlet, yeah, so
both did a 20 foot,
it's a problem.
the guy at the end is 0.
Yeah,
On the north side, see, he's got not only his boat there, but he's also got another dock.
Yeah, I think he
That-
owns both those sides.
Those are both his
Yeah.
docks, and then the new home, the proposed
Yeah,
home,
that's
has got a very limited area. And he's got to be 10 feet from either end of his property line, so he's
so
really,
it doesn't go straight, it goes at an angle.
yes,
So he would have to come in perpendicular.
you'd have to figure something out
It's a
here.
problem.
It's a problem.
Well, can't have a 40-foot boat there.
No, definitely.
Well, he's probably got how many, 40 feet, 50 feet of
Frontage.
frontage?
Right, so
So-
30 usable, really.
And he's got to have 10, is it a percentage or is it 10 feet on each end?
I mean, I was thinking.
10 feet on each end, so
Like,
if it's 50 feet, he can only, he's losing 20 immediately.
Right.
Right? On his dock. Now, you can still extend a boat over the edges of the dock, right?
Yeah, but you see the other guy, he goes to the property line. so
Yeah.
we don't buy him this property. He's got-
Yeah.
Good point.
All right.
Staff review, number one, right, and like to think that we could think about this for the next meeting.
Nothing that's setting the world on fire here.
No. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And I think we can refine that definition using some of your language and have Christie take a look at it and play with it a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't think it's an issue, but I will
Christie,
look.
thank you for your, what you put together here, thinking about this. And so we can always reach out to Christie if we have any questions or comments too, right?
So right now, this is our limit.
I am curious what other.
Yeah, towns.
things
Jim,
talk
tell-
about. Yeah.
We'll get
Kelly,
some
can we
samples
get some
and provide
samples,
at
see
the
what's
next
going on with
meeting.
others? Yeah, that's a great idea. Thank you.
And this is
Okay,
5.
close. Huh?
I guess I'm real quick.
Yes.
I just wanted to remind you guys that the next meeting is Tuesday, July 15th. There is no meeting in August. But there will be the second reading, public hearing regarding the comp plan, coming back to the town commission on August 4th. So I just wanted to make that announcement.
Okay.
I won't be here on the 15th.
That's usually a very lightly attended meeting.
You can just do.
Yeah.
Lynette.
I mean, I can go by,
Even the alternates won't be
And we
here.
can't-
my phone.
Okay.
And we can't do Zoom in July.
No, we can't. They're not set up for that.
Do we have anything on the agenda so far for July?
I do.
Okay, what?
Yeah, what is it?
I have a replat and another developmental review.
And we will also be bringing forward the comp plan amendment, small scale, and the rezoning for Spanish Creek LLC. You'll sit as the local planning agency to review that and forward it on to the commission.
Will we have, as long as we have a quorum to do it, do we have a quorum?
We need
Is
three.
everybody gonna be?
What is a quorum? Do we need three?
At least three.
Third.
Who's gonna be here in July?
For the July meeting?
July.
Twist my arm, I could be here, but, I don't know,
Are you
right?
here?
I'd rather not. I'm supposed to be out in East End of Long Island playing
Yeah.
golf.
Well. So and we don't have, are you here? You're not here.
Nope.
Technically, no.
So,
And Mark's not here, I know. He's gone for the,
so this is we delay it to September.
How about move it to August and have a meeting in August?
Or move it up.
Is there another day in July that we could do?
Early part of July.
I can definitely do.
why don't you reach out to us?
Anything before the 12th, for me.
Yeah, that works for me too.
8th is okay.
Chrissy, is there something that you're putting on that we have to have done by?
I don't, the only thing would be if you have a development plan review, that would only be, sometimes the pressing issue, the comp plan amendment and, rezoning can wait. There's really no rush with that. So we can push that off. Development plan review is really the only thing, and I don't know what the status of the replat is.
It was just.
They're ready, it was just approved, they're both ready to go.
Okay.
All right. I guess I can be here the
The two
15th.
pressing
If
development
you really need
issues.
it. Do we have 3 if I can?
We're talking about the 8th. We talked about moving up earlier. Would anyone
I'd
be here
rather
on
have
the
the
8th?
22nd.
8th I could do.
8th? I could-
I'll do the
Can
15th.
the people do that? That you already gave the time frame?
You can't be here the 15th, Ken, but you can.
I cannot be here the
And I'm not sure I can be here on the 15th, but I can be here on the 8th. I guess I could be here on the 22nd if necessary as well.
I'd rather have the 22nd.
Why don't you take Kelly, take a sample of everyone, see what,
Who's here the week of the 7th?
that's what we're saying.
Week of the
Not-
7th is fine with me.
Yeah, the 8th,
Fine.
the 8th.
Not,
You're here?
I could be here on the 8th.
You're here?
I'd rather, no.
I'm here?
I'm not.
You're not. So we have
We
3
have
for the
three
week of the
for
8th.
For the
Yeah.
8th, yeah.
You?
No.
You're not. Okay. What do you want to do? We can do the week. Do you want to be here for that?
What about the week of the 21st?
That's,
I'm out.
I can be.
So we definitely have 3 for the week of the 7th, and we have a maybe for the week of the 21st, right? Because no, we don't have the week of the 21st, because when that's here, I'm out, and Shields is out. So you don't have the week of the 21st, so the week of the 7th wins.
So it's
Right.
3 enough?
Yeah, that's all you
enough.
need, is 3.
Yeah.
So do you want to do it then?
let's
You
do it then.
okay? Everyone okay?
Yes. Sorry,
Make a
Neil.
motion to
No
move
worries.
the July meeting to July 8th.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Do we have a second?
Seconded.
Second?
Thank you.
I second too.
Let's do that.
At 9:00.
Yep.
Right?
Leave that in the works.
Commissioner comments?
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I'm really surprised that Ken had no comment on that.
Yeah, me too. We all are. We're shocked. Neil? He did come back and have a comment after he said he wouldn't. You saw that though, but he did that.
Yeah.
Neil, any
But it was
comments?
positive, so.
No, congratulations on your reelection as chairman.
I didn't even know until he said, thank you. Lynette,
You miss
happy to
it?
have you today. Any comments from you today? Okay, great.
That's what you get for
Ken?
missing a
I'm
meeting.
gonna
Ken?
Wait, I'm gonna build up for a meeting and be really long one day.
I have 2 comments. We just talked about Island Drive South. Is there anything going on with that?
They actually are very, very close. They have
Good.
one comment that they still have to address with some fire issues. Once they feel it's taken care of, then they just have to pay impact fees, do a pre-construction, and then they get issued permits.
Okay, great. The other thing is, Ken, if you notice in Marlin, the renovation job on the home, down on the set in the corner, not directly in the corner, the renovation of,
118?
is it 118 down on the south, it's on the south piece, that has gone on forever and ever and ever. And it looks like now they've changed the architectural features of the house, where they never came to us for anything, because I
I
guess they
mean,
were.
Merkel's old house.
Yes.
Oh,
Merkel's old house.
Right.
It's
They-
unbelievable what's
Yeah.
going on there,
They
right?
have their appraisal, because I've been watching them. They have their appraisal, so they're still within their amount, so they haven't reached substantial improvement or anything.
Okay. And they could just continue on like that, and they work some days and take days off, and there's no,
As long as they haven't reached their max of the 2 years
okay.
construction.
I would just think it'd be hard on some of the neighbors around there, because it's gone on and on. It's been, I don't know, it's been a year now.
Right, they have up to 2 years
Oh, yeah. For just a renovation. This is this is not a building new. This is
construction.
renovation. It's unbelievable, because they just changed the whole, are they coming back to you guys when they want to, changed they changed the garage, right? They started out at one elevation, one concept, and now it looks like when you walk by, they've changed it completely.
They've been putting building permits in, they're going through reviews.
I gotta tell you what, we're going through some old stuff in the house and have some old articles from Ocean Ridge in the early 2000s. Same stuff was going on then, and we tried to address it by code changes. And it appeased it for a period of time, but it all seems to circle back. Once they get used to it, then they figure out a different way to skirt it. But I think the point that the overall arching point that you're trying to make is we're now entering a period where some builders are taking advantage of the fact that I think we extended the 2-year period during the pandemic, right?
It sunsets at the end of December,
Yeah.
and then it goes
So
back to 18 months.
during the pandemic, we actually,
Makes sense.
yeah, because it took longer for people to
Yes.
get things done. And now these same guys are taking advantage of and creating some havoc. So we may need to take a look at that again.
Yes, yeah. It's just a renovation. It's not, it's crazy.
We used to make people clean up. Now we have the fence that covers it. But I was reading this article as I was laughing because you had to clean up they used to, believe it or not, there was a time period when they had to wash the street when they were done at the construction of the day. They had to go out there and wash the street.
They're still supposed to.
Well, I've yet to see that. But anyway, so we might have to. Unfortunately, there's some bad actors that take advantage of things. Not saying that they are, I'm just saying just in general.
Well, no further comments, adjourning the June 17th, 2025 meeting. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Chairman.
Your
Thank you.
participation,
Good job.
absolutely.
Congratulations.
Yes.
Yes.